Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to each one of you in this CASA platform, and we are going to discuss international taxation about various topics. So, welcome once again on this platform where we always try to learn so many things and wish you a very happy New Year. First series on this international taxation, designed and drafted by Sachin Sinhaji. So, thanks, Sachinji, for this program director. And first speaker of the CASA platform in this 2024, Parul ji. Parul ji, welcome to you. I think she joining. So with this, I once again welcome to each participant for joining and sparing your valuable time. And definitely we are going to learn so many things in this international taxation, divided into two sessions today and two sessions tomorrow. And definitely we will share the presentation and video recording, so do not ask again and again. Definitely I will share presentation and recording to each participant after the completion of each session. Now I request Sachin ji to brief about the program before starting of the program. Over to Sachin ji.
Thank you so much, Sumit ji, for giving the layout of the two-day event. And thank you so much for designating me as a program director, although I'm just a contributor to this event, like other members. And I am here just for the purpose of learning, as you all are here. And first of all, I'd like to say the greetings of the new year. So Happy New Year to all of you. Friends, these 2 days session are very important for the purpose of understanding of the basics of international taxation and the recent developments as well. Because as you know, there are so many changes taking place during the year also, not exactly in the budget, but after the budget by way of notification. There are some changes in the process, like Form 10F, filing of Form 10F, TDS provisions, recent judgment of MFN clause. These all can affect your transaction and the taxability of the transaction, what we were planned earlier. So for this purpose, we were in CASA, we are planning to organize such type of events so that we all would be able to understand the recent developments about the international taxation. So for today, two learned speakers are with us. One is Parul. For the first session is with Parul Aggarwal ma'am. She'll take care of residential status and scope of total income. So as you know that the basic of international taxation starts from section 5 and section 6. So that's why it is very important to understand the section 5. So Parul ma'am, we have given the responsibility to the learned speaker, Parul ma'am, to deliberate on this topic, because section 5, I always believe that all very important section, and there are so many issues in these two important section. And once you able to decide the residential status of an SSC, then only you'd be able to calculate or compute the correct tax liability of the SSC. The second part is with Gitika Gupta. Of course, the brief profile will be read by the concerned moderator. So the issues given to the Gitika Gupta ma'am is the technical issue relating to dividend, interest, royalty, and fees for technical services. So if I briefly tell you something about these four important aspects. So if you refer to section 9(1), so out of section 9(1), 4, 5, 6, and 7 is talking about the dividend, interest, royalty, and FTS. Out of this, you may refer so many judgments, or if you follow the judgments, then you can see the most of the judgments in the international taxation are from the determination of royalty and determination of FTS. So the correct determination of the particular transaction, whether it will fall under royalty, whether it is FTS or not. So this is very important aspect. And of course, after this, all the tax deduction process will start. But the first thing that you have to decide whether the taxability, whether the transaction is taxable under the particular head or not. If yes, then what are the implications? What are the how it is to be taxed? What are the rate is to be applied? Plus, while referring to the domestic law, the understanding of the international tax is also, sorry, DTAA is also very important, because the definition which is given in the domestic law in respect of royalty and in respect of FTS may not match with the DTA provisions. So that is also very important to understand, what if the DTA provision are not matching with the domestic law, what are the differences, how to deal with such differences. So of course, these important aspects to be covered by both the learned speakers for the today's session. So with this brief background, I would like to hand over to Sumit ji and for the further proceeding. Thank you so much, Sumit ji, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Sachin Bhai, for highlighting the program structure and topic to be covered. And before inviting Parul ji as a first speaker of the 2024 and first series of the new year, I would like to brief about her as Miss Parul Aggarwal is a practicing chartered accountant running sole proprietorship firm by name of Parul Aggarwal and Associate. She is practicing since 2015. She is having a bachelor degree in commerce from Delhi University and qualified chartered accountant. Parul hold experience of 18 years, is specializing in international taxation, transfer pricing, advisory, and has worked with Big Four, do not taking the names, and sees her professional life gaining relevant exposure in the area of tax, regulatory, advisory, and litigations. So she is having a vast experience in this international taxation transfer pricing. So definitely she will add a value addition to each one of us about the residential status, scope of the total income in the next 1.5 hours. So over to you, Parulji, your first deliberation.
Thank you so much, Sumit ji. Thank you so much, Sachin ji, for the wonderful introduction, and thank you so much for the platform of CASA, because I've seen it for past 15 years. I also recently attended the 15-year anniversary of
Right.
the platform. I think it is an excellent platform, and you're not only growing by numbers, but I think by value also you're growing manifold. So it is extremely, I mean, it is extremely a very proud moment for me to be part of this, this drive of knowledge sharing. And I wish you a lot of luck, and thank you so much for picking me up as the speaker for the day. And this is a very relevant topic, as it is, as Sachinji rightly pointed out. International taxation, I think, is a very relevant topic. And I think we should have these kind of deliberations more often, so that, and it's an ever changing field as well, so that we are in touch of the latest amendments, the changes, and the latest interpretations as well. So I'll try to cover as much ground as I can relating to my subject. Now let's see, and later in the later half, probably we'll also be taking up queries as the time permits. And for now, I think I'll start with the session first by sharing the screen. And please, all the participants, they can just give a thumbs up if they're able to see the screen. Yeah. So is it visible?
No, Parul. No.
Okay.
Share screen I think आपने नहीं किया है.
Share screen is yeah, now I think it is visible. Yeah. Now I think it's visible.
Yes, Parul. Yes, now okay.
Okay. So let's start today's session. So today we'll be talking about this residential status and the foreign transactions under Income Tax Act. And this is a very good topic for me also, because recently I've been doing a lot of this advisory work and some amount of department work also connected with this. So therefore this topic becomes even more relevant. So when we talk about Income Tax Act, probably we start with the charging provisions of the Income Tax Act, and there the Section 4 becomes even more important, because Section 4 contains the provision, and it says that where the Central Act enacts the Income Tax Act, shall be charged for any assessment year at a rate or rates, income tax at the rate that shall be charged for that year in accordance with and subject to the provisions of the Act in respect of the total income of the previous year of every year. So there are certain highlights to this definition, which actually suggests that firstly, this basis of charge is for every person. A person is also defined in the Income Tax Act. Secondly, for every assessment year. So we have to actually decide the residential status for an assessee for every assessment year, because each assessment year is a separate year, and therefore residential status should also be decided for every assessment year. So probably this is one thing that the one aspect of tax filing or tax compliance which needs to be checked every year, the residential status, because it in certain cases it also keeps changing every year. And therefore, sometimes as we progress in this presentation, we would notice that sometimes it happens is that we are not clear about the residential status of a particular person, of a particular assessee, of a particular taxpayer. And for that, we think that, okay, let's go ahead and take an advance ruling, or let's go ahead and take a, seek a clarification from the tax department. Now, what happens is that when we talk about advance ruling or something, it has its own cycle. It may take 9 to 12 months as it is to even decide on a particular matter. So when it comes to residential status and we are thinking about seeking such a remedy, it could actually be counterproductive, because the advance ruling might take a time which is longer, and by that time the next assessment year, the next financial year will come up. So therefore it actually becomes a zero sum game, and there could be unnecessary delays. So we have to also bear in mind while deciding such matters that, which remedy, we should also think about the timelines of the remedy that we are suggesting, because sometimes, as in this case, when we are deciding residential status, I think particularly taking up an advance ruling could not be the best idea. And we should stick to the definition and the popular interpretation, or the most likely interpretation, which is already there in the in the public domain. So that's how I think we should approach. So therefore, now coming back to the definition under Section 4. So under Section 4, where we see the basis of charge, you would also see that under Section 4(2), in respect of the income which is chargeable under subsection 1. So the basis of charge comes from Section 4(1), and then there is an element of tax deduction at source, or the taxes paid in advance, which is so deductible or payable under the provision of this Act. So here I would like to, and there's also a reason why I put these two subsections on the same slide. The first reason is that where do you derive the chargeability of a particular income? You derive it from Section 4. And second thing is, even if the income is chargeable, it is not necessary that when the time of tax payment comes, the taxpayer really has that kind of a cash flow that they can pay. So therefore, the importance of tax deducted at source, which is the TDS or the withholding tax, and the advance payment of taxes gain significance. I'll try to explain this with the help of an example. For example, today I'm doing trading. I'm doing a stock market trading, and I got a good trade and I made some profit. And the December deadline, or maybe the March deadline of this year, is fast approaching. I'm sitting in the middle of February somewhere, and I made a good trade and I got the money. So the provision for advance tax is there because in this, for the same transaction, the actual date of filing of the tax return will come by, say, June, July, and the portal will open by, say, April, May. And it will be a window of 3-4 months that you have to file your tax returns. So that window is quite past the time of the transaction. So right now, where I have booked the profit, I got the money in my bank. If I don't pay now, if I'm not required to pay today in the month of February or March as an advance tax, then what happens is that there is no surety that tomorrow there would be a window to pay. it could be that my next few trades go really bad and I have a real cash flow problem. Then what happens in the month of July? So therefore, these provisions, whether it be withholding tax provisions or whether it be the advanced tax provisions, they are there to suggest that you please pay the taxes as you earn. So not only that the income tax department is talking about chargeability, they are also concerned about the payment. So you need to pay the taxes as you earn the taxes and not wait for the compliance window to open and then probably you would pay. Of course, if there is a differential, you can pay. If there is an excess differential which is being deducted either as an advance tax or a TDS, then you can claim a refund as well. But pay as you earn is the rationale on which the withholding tax provisions and the advance tax provisions are based. Let us take another example. For example, there is a foreign company, and that foreign company has invested in India for a couple of years. It's been 10 years that they are invested, and now they want an exit. They want to sell their stakes in the Indian company, and they do it. The transaction happens probably, right now we're talking about the transaction level. Probably the transaction levels in a month, say in the month of January. Now today, this foreign company doesn't hold any PAN number. It doesn't hold any income tax presence in India, any presence in India which could be related to the income tax department. Then what happens is that when they are selling their shares, if we do not withhold the taxes, if the AD bank does not withhold the taxes now, then do you think that tomorrow, when the transaction is over, when they've taken the money, they've repatriated the capital gains outside India, and when the actual date of filing of tax return comes, then this foreign company would be inclined to pay taxes, and whether there'll be any kind of a tax collection whatsoever in such a transaction? The answer is no, because since the foreign company doesn't have a PAN in India, since they have just booked the profit and the entire money is being repatriated outside India, there could be 10 different scenarios which will emerge, and probably it would be very, very difficult to fetch the taxes at that point in time. Therefore, this withholding tax provision or the TDS provisions, they are there so that at the transaction level, while the transaction is still happening, one may deduct the taxes and one may collect the taxes, maybe a portion of it or the entirety or in the entirety. And this is something which is very crucial for tax collection purposes when we talk about the Indian Income Tax Act. Okay, so here we are talking about Section 6. So here we are talking about Section 6, which defines residential status under the Income Tax Act. Now, this residential status, deciding the residential status in case of an individual, so we can break it down into individual and then corporates and then other taxpayers. So when we talk about particularly about individuals, then Section 6 defines the residential status under the Act for the individuals, and the test is based on the number of days criteria in India. So here, as you can see, that the threshold for NRIs who are visiting India has been increased over the years from 90 days to 150 days to 181 days. And this above change has led to the abuse in terms of that NRIs are practically staying for 6 months inside in India, and they are still maintaining their NRI status. So therefore, since the window is too big, 181 days is practically 6 months. So therefore, effectively, it has created such situations where even the Indian residents have taken NRI status by probably doing their works that they're doing in India, staying in India for 6 months, running their businesses, doing their works, and then leaving the country just for the sake of becoming NRIs. So this is one abuse which has been witnessed, and therefore certain key changes were brought about in the Finance Act of 2020, which are effective from assessment year 21-22, to trying to counter such abuse, but even they have not been able to fathom it entirely. And this we can see as we go along and as we discuss certain case laws in today's presentation, we would be able to appreciate as to what are the steps that the government has taken and whether they are successful in achieving the results that they wanted to achieve. So if we look at the old regime, we can see that a resident under the old regime is an individual who is in India for more than 181 days during the previous year. So right now I'm talking about section 61A, which defines the threshold period of 181 days for an individual to become a resident in India. And the person should be in India for more than 60 days during the previous year and 365 days during the preceding 4 years. This is section 6(1)(c). So when we read this in the combined fashion, then we arrive at the definition of ordinary resident. So let's park it for now and let's see the contrast as to what are the changes which have been brought about and where does the current law stand. So in this number of days of 60 days, there's a relief which is being provided through which this threshold of 60 days is enhanced to 180 days. I am right now talking about the section 6(1)(c). So under section 6(1)(c), this threshold of 60 days is enhanced to 180 days. And the residents who are leaving India for the purposes of employment outside India, firstly. Secondly, the resident Indian citizens who have left India as a member of the crew on an Indian ship. And thirdly, for expats and sailors who continue for more than 181 days in the year of departure. So there has been a benefit which has been, the government has tried to transfer to these individuals who were anyways, staying less in India. The threshold was only 60 days. And now that 60 days threshold has been enhanced to 181 days. So now whenever we are issuing an advice, we should be aware of this change and we should really highlight this as a part of our advice. And mind you, this is about the ordinary residence, ordinary resident status that I'm talking about. There are a slew of changes in the RNOR side of the definition of resident also. Okay, so this is the entire section verbatim. Let's try to decipher, and the areas which are highlighted in red are the areas which are the changes which have been brought about, and the ones that are the explanation has been even highlighted in red, so that so that we can highlight the exact gist of the change. So when we talk about residential status under section 6 of the Income Tax Act, it says that for the purpose of this act, an individual is said to be a resident in India in any previous year if he is in India in that year for a period or periods amounting in all to 182 days or more. Or this B section is being deleted. It's not that for brevity we have, so this is actually deleted in the act as well. Or subsection C, having within the 4 years preceding that year been in India for a period or periods amounting in all to 365 days or more, is in India for a period or periods amounting in all to 60 days or more in that year. Now explanation 1 is being added, which says that being a citizen of India, a person of Indian origin shall, within the meaning of explanation 2 clause 115C subclause E, who being outside India comes on a visit to India in any previous year, the provisions of subclause C shall apply in relation to that year as if for the word 60 days occurring therein, the words 182 days has been substituted. So this, up till now, what I read was the law as it is, and the synopsis of which I've already given in the past slide. And it says that in case of a citizen, so now is the main part, the main change which has been introduced, which says that in case of a citizen or person of Indian origin having income other than the income from foreign sources exceeding 15 lakh rupees during the previous year, for the words 60 days occurring therein, the words 120 days has been substituted. So what happens here is, now this is a peculiar definition of the deemed resident, as you will see in the further slides as we go. So this is the definition of classic definition of deemed residency, the deeming provisions which are being introduced in the same Finance Act. So इसमें हुआ क्या है कि any in case of a citizen, अभी तक क्या हो रहा था कि number of days से we were defining residential status, but now even citizenship has become a criteria, because as we have seen that NRIs were already abusing the provisions. So therefore recently they deemed resident provisions are being introduced which are based on citizenship and not on the number of days of stay in India. So accordingly, in case of a citizen or person of Indian origin having total income other than from foreign sources. So अगर किसी भी Indian citizen की income India से 15 lakhs है during the previous year, for the words 60 days, यहाँ पर जो words है ऊपर 60 days वो 120 days हो जाएंगे. So this is one relief which are being given to even deemed residents firstly. Then there is an explanation which has been added which says, for the purpose of this section, the expression income from foreign sources means income which accrue or arises outside India, except the income derived from a business controlled in or the profession set up in India. So इसका भी अपना relevance है. That's why I have doubly highlighted this. But आगे हम कुछ examples करेंगे तो we'll get more clarity on this aspect. So let's move on to the next slide. So there is an amendment, section 6(1)(a). So this new subsection is introduced with effect from April 1st, 2020, and it reads that notwithstanding anything contained in clause 1, an individual being a citizen of India. तो अभी आप यहाँ पे क्या देख रहे हैं कि number of days of stay से change होके ये citizenship पे आ गया. So any Indian citizen having total income other than income from foreign sources. So किसी की भी Indian citizen की अगर income होती है Indian income other than income from foreign sources means Indian income, कि किसी भी Indian citizen की अगर income होती है which exceeds 15 lakh rupees during the previous year shall be deemed to be resident in India. उनको deemed resident माना जाएगा under the Income Tax Act in that previous year if he is not liable to tax in any other country. अगर उनको कहीं पे भी टैक्स नहीं देना है, वो स्टेटलेस पर्सन है. सो डोंट गेट टू मच कैरिड अवे बाय द वर्ड स्टेटलेस, बिकॉज स्टेटलेस is something which appeared in the articles. It is not something which is defined in the act per se. So कोई ऐसे citizen जो कहीं पे भी टैक्स नहीं दे रहे, कहीं भी ओवरसीज टैक्स नहीं दे रहे हैं, इंडियन सिटीजन्स हैं एंड उनकी 15 lakhs की इनकम जो है वो इंडिया में बन रही है. इट कुड बी इंटरेस्ट इनकम, इट कुड बी एनी काइंड ऑफ इनकम फ्रॉम इंडिया दैट दे आर डिराइविंग in that previous year, if he is not liable to tax in any other country or territory by reason of his domicile or residence or any other criteria of similar nature. So अगर किसी पर्सन की कोई यूएई में या सऊदी में somebody is employed and वहां पर उनकी कोई टैक्स नहीं लगता उनकी इनकम पे, तो हम, लेकिन वो इंडियन सिटीजन है, तो देर आर 3 criteria which we will check and then we will understand whether that person is a deemed resident or not. Firstly, we will check कि वे इंडियन सिटीजन है. So first check. Then the second check is कि that the person is deriving an income exceeding 15 lakhs from India. अगर इंडिया से उनकी कोई भी एक्टिव या पैसिव इनकम जो है exceeding 15 lakhs है, then that is another checkpoint which gets meted. And third thing is that he is not liable to tax in any other country, not just the country of residence, but कहीं पे भी उनकी overseas में कोई टैक्स उनकी इनकम पे अगर नहीं लग रहा है by reason of his domicile or residency or any other criteria, then this person who is an Indian citizen becomes a deemed resident. तो यहाँ आप क्लियरली देख सकते हैं कि नंबर ऑफ डेज से फोकस शिफ्ट होके रेजिडेंसी पे आ गया है, इंडियन इनकम के क्वांटम पे आ गया है और आपका स्टेटलेस पर्सन पे आ गया जिसका कहीं पे भी कोई टैक्स नहीं लग रहा है. So for the removal of doubts, it is hereby declared that this clause shall not apply in case of an individual who is said to be resident in India in the previous year under subclause 1. So अगर subclause 1 में आप covered है तब तो आप resident हो ही गए, लेकिन अगर आप वहां पे लेकिन ये आपकी जो provisions है ये different है, that's why यहाँ पर आपका exclusion भी इन्होंने दिया हुआ है. So paired with the introduction of a new category of NOR status. So हम आगे की slides में हम देखेंगे कि through this introduction of the deemed resident definition, we have created a new category which is not ordinary resident की एक हमने नई category इसमें add कर दी है, which will move further and then we'll see. Secondly, which results in okay, so there is a query here by Nikita that how do we decide that whether anyone is a citizen or not in income tax, because in the IT tax resident or non-resident is defined. So जो citizenship है, you have the so citizenship, Indian citizenship, I think right now what I can imagine is, what I can understand is that it is through the Aadhaar that you decide the citizenship firstly, and secondly आपका even income tax act में भी आपके citizenship के definitions हैं which go back to your roots, even your father, grandfather. So citizenship की definition भी है. I think unfortunately I have not included this here in the slide, but yeah, it is very much there, and through this citizenship one can derive at the one can decide that whether or not a person is a citizen in India, and accordingly हम वहां से we draw the inference. And even आपके I think passport पे भी entry होती है where you say कि you are citizen in India but you are domiciled in this country for that matter, if you see the entry there. So वहां से भी आप इसको cross check कर सकते हैं. So moving ahead, this results in deemed resident will perpetually be NORs. So deemed residents not ordinary resident बनते हैं. ये हम आगे जाके देखेंगे भी, because अभी तो हमने सिर्फ definition cover करी है, but they do not become ordinary resident. Deemed residents जो हैं not ordinary resident बनते हैं. And this is applicable only if individual remains non-resident even under section 6(1). So अगर इंडिविजुअल जो है वो नॉन रेजिडेंट रहता है तभी ये वाले प्रोविजंस एप्लीकेबल हैं. So explanation is inserted by Taxation and Other Laws, Relaxation and Amendment of Certain Provisions Act 2020. So अब अगर हम यहाँ देखें, there is also an amendment in section 6 subsection 6, जहां पर ये जो रेड में मैंने हाईलाइट किया हुआ है, this shows the change, and the one which is in gray is the previous law as it is. So a person is said to be not ordinarily resident in India in any previous year if such person is an individual who has been a non-resident in India in 9 out of 10 previous years preceding that year, or has during the 7 previous years preceding that year been in India for a period of or periods amounting in all to 729 days or less, or HUF whose manager has been a non-resident in India in 9 out of 10 previous years preceding that year, or has during the 7 previous years preceding that year been in India for a period or periods amounting in all to 729 days or less. So as you can see, this is the definition of resident but not ordinary resident, section 6 subsection 6. यहाँ पर new clause sub clauses add किए गए हैं, which starts with subclause C, which says a citizen of India or a person of Indian origin having total income other than income from foreign sources exceeding 15 lakh rupees. So this is that same deemed residency की definition, which says firstly you should be a citizen, secondly your Indian income should be exceeding 15 lakhs in the previous year, and thirdly, as referred to in clause B of explanation 1 to clause 1, who has been in India for a period or periods amounting in all to 120 days or more but less than 182 days. So यहाँ पे आपका बता दिया गया है कि अगर आप 180 डेज से अगर आप यहाँ पर 120 डेज से ज्यादा रहते हैं लेकिन 180 डेज से कम रहते हैं तो भी ये जो है रेजिडेंट बट और नॉट ऑर्डिनरी रेजिडेंट कहलाएंगे. A citizen of India who is deemed to be resident in India under clause 1A. So ये जो दो insertions हैं इनसे हमें clear पता चलता है, एक में number of days भी है और citizenship भी, और एक में pure play आपका deemed residency का definition covered है. So in those situations में the individual becomes resident but not ordinarily resident, and then there is an explanation which has been added which says that for the purpose of this section the expression income from foreign sources means income which accrues or arises outside India, except income derived from a business controlled or a profession set up in India. So ये line बहुत ज़्यादा crucial है. It could actually be a deal maker or a deal breaker when it comes to the provisions of deemed residency, because अभी तक हमने ये समझा है कि इतना तो clear है कि firstly you have to be Indian citizen, you have to have Indian income exceeding 15 lakhs, and you have to have you should not have any other income chargeable to tax outside India by virtue of domicile, residence or any other mode. तब आप डीम रेजिडेंट बनते हैं. वी हैव सीन दिस मच. अगर आप डीम रेजिडेंट बनते हैं तो आपका इम्प्लीकेशन क्या होता है? दैट यू बिकम नॉट ऑर्डिनरी रेजिडेंट. यू नीदर बिकम नॉन रेजिडेंट, वो तो आप हो ही नहीं सकते, एंड नॉर यू बिकम ऑर्डिनरी रेजिडेंट. सो आप नॉट ऑर्डिनरली रेजिडेंट बनते हैं. अब यहाँ पर एक एक्सप्लेनेशन भी इधर ऐड करिए जहां पे इसका कार्व आउट दिया हुआ है, which says that for the purpose of this section the expression income from foreign sources means income which accrues or arises outside India. So except for the income derived from a business controlled in or a profession set up in India. So for example आपका कहीं पे भी बाहर जो है कोई पैसे आपके टैक्सेबल नहीं है, बट अगर कोई बिजनेस आप बाहर कर रहे हैं, आप बाहर ही उसको रिसीव करते हैं, आप उसको बाहर ही चलाते हैं बिजनेस को, लेकिन उस बिजनेस को चलाने के लिए दैट बिजनेस इज कंट्रोल्ड और इट इज अ प्रोफेशन विच इज सेटअप इन इंडिया. इंडिया से अगर आपका नेक्सस एस्टेब्लिश हो जाता है तो फिर देन दैट इनकम वुड बी टैक्सेबल इन इंडिया. सो इसीलिए ये चीज आपको बहुत ही क्लैरिटी से याद रखें कि अगर आपको अपना RNOR स्टेटस रखना है, then whatever income you have outside India or whatever profession you set up outside India, that should not be controlled from India, because if that is controlled from India, then you come outside of the definition of RNOR, and then ordinary resident का आपको scope जो है वो आपके ऊपर आ जाता है. So now let's talk about the threshold limit. Since this is the new criteria for residential status, it is applicable only if the total income other than the income of foreign sources exceeds 15 lakh rupees during the previous year, and income from foreign sources means income which accrues or arises outside India. But ये accrues or arises में outside India में carve out क्या है? Except for the income which is derived from a business controlled in or a profession set up in India. ओके, सो एक बार ही थोड़ा RNOR को हम एनालाइज करके देखते हैं, रेजिडेंट बट नॉट ऑर्डिनरली रेजिडेंट को. सो दिस इज एक्चुअली ये तब से चल रहा है जब से द ब्रिटिश राज वाज देयर इन अवर कंट्री, बिकॉज दिस इज अ वेरी नॉवल काइंड ऑफ अ सिचुएशन. इट डजंट एग्जिस्ट एट टू मेनी प्लेसेस. ज्यादातर रेजिडेंसी रूल ही है सब जगह. नंबर ऑफ डेज क्राइटेरिया पे ही आप रेजिडेंसी या नॉन रेजिडेंसी डिसाइड करते हैं, बट दिस इज अ मिडल वे. So you are neither a non-resident, not an ordinary resident. So ये RNOR जो है ये काफी यूनिक सा अप्रोच है जो इंडिया के पास है, and this is for individuals and HUFs and erstwhile categories also which continue. RNOR means a person resident in India but who has been non-resident in 9 out of 10 preceding years. So this is actually a synopsis of the verbatim definition which we had in the previous slide, in last to last slide, or who spends less than 729 days in the preceding 7 previous years. So then आप बन जाते हैं resident but not ordinary resident, or therefore this RNOR status can thus be enjoyed for a maximum period of 3 years. अभी हम इसके बेनिफिट्स और इसके इम्प्लीकेशंस पे जाए उससे पहले आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क यू दैट इफ देयर इज अ केस ऑफ अ रिटर्निंग NRI. सो अगर आप इस डेफिनेशन को रीड करेंगे एंड व्हेनेवर यू आर केटरिंग टू समबडी हु इज अ रिटर्निंग NRI, जो कि पहले NRI थे और आप इंडिया में आके रेजिडेंट बनना चाहते हैं, देन व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट you would notice that for 3 years that they come back, they stay RNOR. बट वो जो 3 years का पीरियड है while they are still resident but not ordinary resident, that's a very very crucial period, because उस पीरियड में उनके जो भी फॉरेन एसेट्स हैं, ठीक है, उसको यू नीड नॉट रिपोर्ट. आपको उनको रिपोर्ट नहीं करना है. आपको सिर्फ जो उनकी इनकम जो है जो उनकी ओवरसीज की इनकम है उसको ऑफर टू टैक्स करना है. बट द मोमेंट एंड उनको आप साथ में ये भी कह सकते हैं आप उनको लिक्विडेट करिए या उनको आप यहाँ पर लाइए, But the moment they become ordinary resident, it is 3 years actually. It is 3 years. So the moment they become ordinary resident, ऐसे टाइम पे आप उनको कह सकते हैं कि now you have to report also. So अभी क्या है कि आपको सिर्फ अगर आप ordinary resident बन गए, you are returning NRI and you become an ordinary resident, तब सिर्फ overseas की income को offer to tax करना काफी नहीं है. You need to even report it, the foreign assets. Otherwise उस पे भी जो आपके पेनल्टी है वो इतने स्ट्रिंजेंट हैं दैट दे विल नॉट बी ड्रॉप्ड इवन इफ यू से दैट नो आई हैव ऑफर्ड इट टू टैक्स बट आवर सीए और आवर स्टाफ फॉरगॉट टू रिपोर्ट दैट ओवरसीज फॉरेन एसेट्स. उसके भी काफी ज्यादा implications हैं. So therefore there is a certain set of compliances for an RNOR and there's a certain different set of compliances for an ordinary resident. So we have to be really wary of the fact कि हम हर साल residential status check करें, especially in case of returning NRIs, because वहां पर उनके returns में उनके implications, tax implications, compliances सब पे काफी effect आएगा the moment they become an ordinary resident in India. So this RNOR status is available to both Indian citizen and the foreign citizen. And this is a new category with effect from April 1, 2020 for two kinds of individuals. ये दोनों ही kinds of individuals we have covered in the definition 2 slides back, जहाँ पे हमने उसको red में highlight किया था, which is RNOR also includes an Indian citizen covered under 6(1) who spends more than 120 days in India and fulfills the specified conditions. And RNOR also includes an Indian citizen covered under 6(1)(a). Now 6(1)(a) is the deemed resident who is not liable to tax in any other country due to his domicile or residence etc. So अभी RNOR होने की benefits क्या है? So अगर हम ordinary resident है तो हमारी global income taxable है. अगर हम नॉन रेजिडेंट है तो एज इट इज हमारे बाहर के इनकम टैक्सेबल नहीं है, सिर्फ जो इंडिया में हम रिसीव कर रहे हैं या अक्रू कर रहे हैं ओनली दैट इज टैक्सेबल. नो व्हाट डज दिस न्यू कैटेगरी ऑफ आरएनओआर? इट्स नॉट अ न्यू कैटेगरी, इट हैज बीन सिंस द इंसेप्शन. एज आई सेड ब्रिटिश राज से ये चलता आ रहा है. बट ये जो मिडिल में जो कैटेगरी है आरएनओआर के, व्हाट आर द एक्चुअल बेनिफिट्स कनेक्टेड टू देम? सो दे आर that only income received or accrued in India is taxable for RNOR. The income earned, accrued or received outside India is not taxable in the hands of RNOR. So it is the opposite of the non-resident. Non-resident का सिर्फ इंडिया में received income taxable होता है और जो उनके बाहर के जो funds हैं that are not taxable, which are received outside India. Now scope of income taxable is almost similar to a non-resident. However, इसमें there is one carve out, there is one catch, which is that income derived from a business controlled in or a profession set up in India becomes taxable in case of a RNOR. Okay, अभी तो खैर POEM के जब से laws आए हैं, which we'll cover later in the slides, तो we are seeing that अगर business controlled from India है तो even कंपनी के केस में भी, वहां तो कंपनी के केस में तो नहीं होता रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस आरएनओआर में या फिर ऑर्डिनरी रेजिडेंट में, बट अभी हम आगे जाके देखेंगे कि वहां पे भी अगर पोएम ट्रिगर होता है तो अगर आपका इनकम, आपका बिजनेस जो है इंडिया से कंट्रोल्ड है या है, सो देन इवन देयर यू हैव टू पे टैक्सेस इन इंडिया. सो आरएनओआर का जो डिफाइनिंग फैक्टर है, जो डिफरेंस है, वो यही है कि अगर आपका इंडिया से कोई भी बिजनेस कंट्रोल्ड है या कोई प्रोफेशनल सेटअप है, then that income becomes taxable in India. So all your non-resident incomes are not taxable in India. They can be taxed in India if that income is derived from a business controlled or a profession set up in India. So this is the one thin line of difference which is there and which now is applicable even in case of the deemed residents. अभी हम डीम्ड रेजिडेंस का एक और लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल. फॉर एग्जांपल जब ये डीम्ड रेजिडेंस की डेफिनेशन आई थी तब एवरीबडी वाज लाइक इन अ स्टेट ऑफ पैरानोया, बिकॉज लोगों को लगता था कि जितने भी एनआरआईज हैं सबसे अच्छे रिटर्न्स तो हमें इंडिया में ही मिलते हैं, चाहे प्रॉपर्टी के रिटर्न्स हो या फिर हमें करेंसी के रिटर्न्स हो. यू नो, इफ वी अर्न इन डॉलर्स एंड वी स्पेंड इन रुपीज, देन only by the currency arbitrage only one earns. एज इट इज हमारे इंटरेस्ट रेट इंडिया में ज्यादा है, द प्रॉपर्टी एस्केलेशन की बात कहे, क्योंकि डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी है तो द रिटर्न्स आर बेटर. सो व्हाट पीपल डू इज दैट पीपल अर्न इन dollars outside India or in other foreign currency, and they invest in India, be it in FDs, be it in stock market, or be it in real estate or other investment instruments. So what happens here is that जब वो ऐसे कर रहे हैं तो ज्यादातर लोग जिनका आउटसाइड है सब कुछ, इंडिया में कोई नेक्सस नहीं है, उनके बैंक अकाउंट्स यहाँ होते हैं. सो एटलीस्ट उनका क्या होता है, यहाँ पर एफडी पे इंटरेस्ट आ रहा होता है. So that interest portion which they are getting here, sometimes it exceeds 15 lakhs. तो अभी अभी जब ये डीम्ड रेजिडेंट का डेफिनेशन आया था, जब इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था, तो पीपल वर इन अ स्टेट ऑफ पैरानोया, बिकॉज दे वर थिंकिंग कि नाउ क्योंकि इसमें नंबर ऑफ डेज ऑफ स्टे नहीं है, so the immediate reaction was just because you're an Indian citizen and you are working outside India, और आपकी अगर इंडिया में पैसिव इनकम भी 15 लाख से एक्सीड हो गई, जो लोगों की हो जाती है, एंड बाहर उनका कोई टैक्सेबिलिटी नहीं है, मान लीजिए आप कहीं ऐसी किसी कंट्री में है जहाँ पे टैक्सेशन लॉज, पर्सनल टैक्सेशन लॉज इतने स्ट्रिंजेंट नहीं है, और जस्ट बाय वर्च्यू ऑफ यू बीइंग रेजिडेंट देयर और डोमिसाइल्ड देयर आपको वहां भी टैक्स नहीं देना, सो देन यू गेट ट्रिगर्ड. So people actually have this, they imagine that they will have to pay the taxes on even the income which is earned outside India. So that was the paranoia which was there, but it was later clarified जब यहाँ पे RNOR के definition में उसको लाया गया कि अगर आप deemed resident की definition में भी हैं तो भी आप RNOR बनेंगे, आप ordinary resident नहीं बनेंगे. तो अगर आप दुबई से या कहीं और से कोई इनकम अर्न कर रहे हैं, सऊदी से, you need not offer it to tax in India. But now there is a but here as well, because यहाँ डेफिनेशन ये कहती है आपको वो इनकम भी इंडिया में ऑफर टू टैक्स करनी पड़ जाएगी इफ दैट इनकम इज डिराइव फ्रॉम अ बिजनेस कंट्रोल और अ प्रोफेशन सेटअप इन इंडिया. सो ये एक थिन लाइन ऑफ डिफरेंस है कि इवन इफ यू आर अ डीम्ड रेजिडेंट, you are not required to pay taxes on your overseas income, but you will be required to pay taxes if that overseas income is derived from a business controlled in or a profession which is set up in India. Let us understand this with the help of an example. Okay, or maybe let's first run through this scope of income as per section 5(1). The proviso also, which includes income, additional income taxable for RNOR is an income accruing or deemed to accrue in India, income received or deemed to be received in India, income which accrues or arises outside India but is derived from a business controlled in India or a profession set up in India. So ये definition जो है, this is since time immemorial. This is not a new definition, but this is a very killer definition, I would say, because ये make or break आ जाता है यहाँ पे RNOR का. So one cannot really assume कि I am a deemed resident, so I am a RNOR, so इसलिए whatever overseas income I am earning, that cannot be taxed. The actual answer is that even that income, that overseas income, can be taxed in India if it is derived from a business either controlled in India or a profession which is set up in India. So as we can see, अभी तक हमने जो भी कुछ discuss किया on deemed residency, what we understand is that there is a limited increase in the scope of taxable income for the RNOR as compared to the non-resident, right? But what is the increase if the profession or the business is set up in India? No, this is an intentional and the targeted approach of the government, because this came, the deemed residency change came as a, yeah, so we'll be covering the practical example of the profession set up in India in the coming slides. But right now, sticking with our current discussion, actually this deemed residency came as an anti-abuse law. So this, therefore, you would notice that हमारे Indian Income Tax Act में deeming provisions जितने भी हैं, they are mostly anti-abuse provisions which are being introduced as a deeming fiction in the Indian Income Tax law. So उसी तरह से ये भी आया था, but ये करते करते it actually became clawless, because it firstly when it came, people were under the impression that they would have to pay the taxes on the foreign source income also, but the moment they made it RNOR, then half of the chunk of that entire gamut of people were outside the ambit of the taxability of Indian taxability, because अभी अभी आप ओवरसीज इनकम तभी टैक्स कर सकते हैं इंडिया में अगर they are earned from either a business controlled in India or a profession set up in India. So therefore, the moment they said कि no, the deemed resident would be RNOR, so उसका impact अपने आप ही half हो गया या even less than half हो गया, because there's a very small section of people who are earning overseas income from a business or a profession which is controlled or set up in India. So this is in line with the press release issued by the Government of India on 2nd February 2020, जिसमें एक clarification आई थी. And now moving further, let's take up a case study of a profession set up in India. So there is a doctor who's an Indian citizen. He has a professional setup in India, including a clinic and a staff, both secretarial and professional staff. So 1920 May, he leaves India to stay with his son in UAE for good. He manages his practice from UAE along with the support of the staff in India. So now what happens is that this doctor has now a practice in UAE, but the appointments and all the other admin support or whatever is being supported by the Indian staff. Now in 2021, he comes on visits to India, stays in India for 140 days and stays in UAE for 170 days. And balance days, he goes across other countries. Okay. So abhi what we can see is that his total income is 17 lakhs in 2021. ठीक है, इसमें medical fees से he is earning from the Indian patient, he is earning 13 lakhs. Interest income in the bank account is 1 lakh. So total उनको जो India से income आ रही है which is 14 lakhs. Okay. Medical fee जो NRI से वो UAE में ले रहे हैं that is 2 lakhs, and interest income जो उनके UAE बैंक अकाउंट में है that is 1 lakh. Okay, so 3 lakhs in total. 3 lakhs he is earning from the overseas income and 14 lakhs he is earning from the Indian income. This is the breakup of the total 17 lakhs that he is earning during the year. Now what happens? What is the impact? Now, the income which is accruing in India is 14 lakhs and the income which is accruing outside India is 3 lakhs. Now, income accruing outside India from a profession set up in India is 2 lakhs, because you remember that the staff is helping them to earn that income, their professional income in Dubai. So therefore, उसको इन्होंने 2 lakhs कर दिया. तो अभी 14 तो इंडिया का income था and deemed इनका जो हो गया वो हो गया 2 lakhs. So it becomes 16 lakhs, which exceeds the threshold of 15 lakhs, which is there in the definition. So by virtue of this, he actually becomes a deemed resident, क्योंकि 15 lakhs का threshold है, जो कि इनका cover हो गया, firstly. और वो cover क्यों हुआ? Because of getting covered under section 6(1)(a), which is deemed resident, as well as falling in the definition of RNOR as per section 6(6)(d). So ये RNOR इसलिए हुए because इनका staff इनके UAE के काम में इनको support कर रहा था. That's why India का nexus था, the profession set up in India था. Therefore, this 2 lakhs get added to the 14 lakhs and thereby उनका 15 lakh का threshold भी जो है वो meet हो जाता है. And therefore, he becomes the deemed resident in India and he has to also offer to tax the UAE income that he is earning, which is not the bank income. So बैंक का जो पैसे हैं वो नहीं होंगे क्योंकि वो इंडिया से कंट्रोल नहीं है, इंडिया से सेटअप नहीं है. बट क्योंकि उनकी प्रैक्टिस जो है पुराने ही लोग चला रहे हैं जो कि इंडिया से सेटअप है, so therefore that will be offered to tax in India. So I hope this example is amply clear to everyone. So therefore I have highlighted this thing that interest income जो उनकी UAE बैंक में है that will still not be taxable. Moving on. So this is another example of profession where this profession is set up outside India. So now the same Dr. Iyer, who's an Indian citizen, undertakes he undertakes certain, he sets up a clinic in UAE on April 1st, 2020. He sets up clinic at his home in UAE and he becomes the member also of a local medical association in UAE and pays their membership fee. Now he pays VAT on the services supplied in US as applicable, and he manages his practice from UAE without any staff support from India. So now what happens is that he comes to the visit to India for 140 days. Now this is inconsequential क्योंकि यहाँ तो हम citizenship से चल रहे हैं, तो हमें number of days तो देखना ही नहीं है, वैसे भी हमारा कम है 180 से 182 से, and stays in UAE for 170 days, balance days across other countries. अभी भी सेम फैक्ट्स है, इंडियन इनकम इज मेडिकल प्रोफेशन से 13 lakhs है, क्योंकि इंडिया का स्टाफ इंडिया में ही इनकम जनरेट कर रहा है 13 lakhs. इंटरेस्ट इंडिया में 1 lakh है, मेडिकल फीस यूएई में 2 lakhs है, और इंटरेस्ट इनकम यूएई में 1 lakh है. नाउ लेट्स सी द फ्लिप सिनेरियो, व्हाट हैपेंस. Now the professional income of 2 lakhs accruing outside India is liable to tax in India. What would be considered as profession set up in UAE? So is the clinic or office required for these purposes? Is the staff required? Or the home office or the clinic sufficient to constitute a setup in UAE? And क्या अगर वो लोकल मेंबरशिप ले लेते हैं और वहाँ लोकल टैक्सेस पे करते हैं, जैसे कि उन्होंने वहाँ पे दिस मेडिकल एसोसिएशन में एनरोल किया और वहाँ पे उन्होंने वीएटी पे करना शुरू किया, will it have any impact? What if the setup is done just before earning of the foreign income? So can it be considered as an arrangement to avoid tax? So what here in this slide I'm trying to say convey is that क्या हम इसको गार मानेंगे कि इन्होंने इंडिया से नेक्सस नहीं दिखाया ताकि सिर्फ इंडिया की इनकम इंडिया में टैक्स हो जाए, which is to the tune of 14 lakhs, और ये डीम्ड रेजिडेंट बन ही ना पाए बिकॉज इंडिया से इनकी इनकम 14 lakhs है, इट इज बिलो द थ्रेशोल्ड ऑफ 15 lakhs. एंड इवन इफ अगर ये बन भी जाते हैं तो भी क्योंकि यहाँ से इंडिया से कुछ भी कंट्रोल नहीं हो रहा है इनका, ओवरसीज का काम ओवरसीज में ही है, सो देयरफॉर वन कैन से कि दिस income which I am earning outside India, which is 3 lakh rupees, will not be offered to tax in India. So, but इस सारे planning को one may also call it a planning or an arrangement to avoid the tax. So, इसीलिए हमें GAR provisions को हमेशा mind में रख के चलना चाहिए because they may actually kill, our best of planning when it comes to tax planning, and it can actually convert it into tax mitigation and tax evasion. So, therefore, we have to be wary of it, and therefore, I have, rather than concluding this, I have kept this open to our own interpretation. To make a suggestion here, but as per my understanding it would not be, because India की income India में ही tax होगी and threshold 15 lakhs का ही cover नहीं हो रहा, तो deemed resident ही आप नहीं बन रहे, तो RNOR का तो अभी definition picture में ही नहीं आएगा. So now this is another case study which is on the business controlled in India. So here there is a Mr. Ajwani who is an Indian citizen and residing in UAE since 2006. Since he left India, he has been a non-resident of India up till FY 1920. His stay in India during 2021 is 180 days and his stay in UAE is 160 days. Balance days are spent in different countries due to travel. Okay. So he has set up a proprietorship concern in UAE, Ajwani and Company, which is a trading business controlled by him throughout the year from India and UAE. He has an office in India and employees sitting in India for the execution of this proprietary business. Now, his income for 2021 includes interest on NRO account 5 lakhs, profit of Ajwani and Co 10 lakhs. Okay, so what would be the impact? क्या ये business, can we really say that this business is controlled in India? Is part control also a control? If yes, then what should be the amount of profit that should be taxable in India? Let's see. So what happens is that since this control is not defined in the Income Tax Act, So we have to refer to the decisions which are, because pehle to sirf control and management hi hota tha. So we have to go back to the definitions which are being interpreted in the various judicial pronouncement of the yesteryears. And we have to see that for determining the residential status of the persons. Okay. So except that only control aspects needs to be analyzed and not management. Okay. Because अगर हम आज की हम definition देखते हैं, so what we can see is कि whether it is controlled from a business setup in India. So the control aspect we need to see. So business should be controlled in India. So from the literal reading of the provision, even if only partial control is there, then this income should not be covered. But still it is open to interpretation, because one may say even partial control is a control only. It is not that you 100% exercise no control. So then there is a Bombay High Court judgment which says that even partial control in India would be sufficient to tax the income of the business in India. So as I said, this is open for discussion and interpretation, whether partial control would envisage that you have a control, or whether it would be like totally outside the ambit of control. So if yes, what should be the amount of profit taxable in India? क्या पूरा ही हम कहेंगे business India से run है? Partial control के case में हम कैसे attribution करेंगे? So these are open questions. Once the business is controlled partially, then only partial profits attributable to that amount of control in India should be taxable. This is the common, commonly we arrive at this conclusion, but this is yet to be tested in the court of law. So till that time, we can keep it as an open, open matter in our opinions, and rather not give a conclusive opinion on this, because it may go counterproductive. क्योंकि ये अभी it still needs to see the test of the Indian courts. So let's see the Supreme Court judgment in the case of BB Irani versus CIT 60 ITR 437. As the control of business is a condition for its application, it is argued that only so much of income as accrues or rises to him without the taxable territories attributable to the period of such control is liable to tax. There appears to be some plausibility in this argument obiter dicta. So here also, as you would see, that they are saying that control is a condition for the application. Okay. So only so much of income as accrues or rises to him without the taxable territories attributable to the period of the control is liable to tax. So यहाँ भी इन्होंने partial control के लिए बोला है that you may apportion the profit in the ratio of the amount of control, but still उसको quantify करना is a challenging job, and I don't think that it can conclusively be done ever. So therefore, I would recommend not to opine too much on the matter, because it still needs to be tested. So let's see a business which is controlled in India. Same facts as 2A, but just that Mr. Ajwani has set up now an LLC with his brother in UAE, okay, which is into the trading of diamonds, which is a business. Now this firm is controlled by their father, who stays in India throughout the year. तो यहाँ आपको control, आपको दिख गया, Indian nexus हो गया, Indian control हो गया. The brothers manage the sales business, but they report to their father and take decisions from him, take the orders from him. His income for 2021 includes the following. So now this is the income of the brother. Interest on NRO account is 5 lakh. So NRO account is a foreign currency account. Profit of this concern, the business, is 10 lakhs, and the sales commission of from the Ajwanian brothers is 20 lakhs. So as you can see, the profits is the business income, but is the sales commission also a business income? Because ultimately sales commission you are earning in your individual capacity. So what happens there? So can the profits earned by Ajwanian brothers be taxable in India? First question. Can the profits earned by Mr. Ajwani be taxable in India? And the sales commission earned by Mr. Advani also taxable in India? Let's find out. So abhi what I feel is that only the income which is derived from a business controlled in are taxable in India for the RNOR. So therefore, even if Mr. Ajwani is said to be an RNOR, क्योंकि वो sales commission का जो income है, that is not from a business controlled from India, therefore that should be outside the ambit. That is what I would understand, seeing the facts of this case. Therefore, only direct income earned from the business are covered. So sales commission is not a very direct income. Sales commission is a commission that you earn on, enhancing the sales. Somehow you meet new people and you do. That is how you earn it. It is not directly related to the business. Or are indirect incomes earned due to service provided to the business control in India also covered? Now, meaning of the phrase derived from business control in India needs to be studied. Okay. And अभी तक इसमें कोई definition provided नहीं है, but there are many precedents. So therefore, it is clear that the word derived from in section 80HH of Income Tax Act must be understood as something which has direct or immediate nexus with the appellant's industrial undertaking. So therefore, in my mind, जो sales commission है, उस पे इनका impact नहीं आना चाहिए. बाकी जो है income उनकी NRO तो as it is outside India. Interest income is not controlled by India. Therefore, 5 lakh will not be offered to tax in India. Profits of Ajwani and brothers would be taxable in India because father is taking all the decision and is giving the instructions to run the business. But जो sales commission है वो individual capacity में earn हो रही है, उसमें कोई father के instruction के हिसाब से वो नहीं हो रही. They are putting in their own labor and being able to earn that income. So therefore, that 20 lakh rupees income should not be offered to tax in India. This is what my interpretation is on the basis of the facts of this case. Now let's understand that what are the advantages and the disadvantages of a RNOR. So as I highlighted earlier, आप जब तक RNOR हैं, so आपको foreign assets report नहीं करने, आपको offer to tax नहीं करने, unless it is being controlled by a business or a profession set up in India, आपको नहीं करना है उसको. So बहुत ही limited सा increase in scope है when we see RNOR, when we look at the adverse points, which is income from business controlled or profession set up in India has a very limited increase. Concessional tax rate है, वो आपको applicable नहीं होता अगर आप RNOR बन जाते हो, क्योंकि वो सिर्फ ordinary resident को होता है. Okay. Then concessional tax rate जो DTA में है would not be available where India is a source country and individual tiebreaker goes in the favor of India. ठीक है. So अगर TT में भी इंडियन बन जाते हैं और आप वैसे भी RNOR है, so आपको कोई TT का बेनिफिट भी नहीं मिलता. You don't have a way out. And then presumption जहाँ पे होती है that control of firm or HUF for companies in India, ठीक है, that is also goes against you, which is profession or a business setup in India. Overall reduction in the years of NOR relief to the returning NRIs. Clearly within tax compliance framework, including TDS obligations, tax return filings, etc. So ये कुछ adverse points है जो कि अगर आप RNOR है तो आपको face कर रहे हैं, और beneficial points आपके ये है कि आपका slab rate लग जाता है being an individual. So senior citizen का slab rate आपको जो है avail हो जाता है. TDS deduction जो है वो आपकी TDS deduction is not as per 195, lower rate आपको लगता है. आप फॉरेन टैक्स क्रेडिट ले सकते हो, लेकिन उसके लिए आपको आपका जो DTA है उसमें यू हैव टू बी अ टाई ब्रेकर के हिसाब से यू हैव टू बी फॉरेन रेजिडेंट, तभी आपको उसका बेनिफिट मिलेगा. अदरवाइज तो आप RNOR हो ही गए हैं. एंड इस तरीके से रिलैक्सेशन है कुछ रिपोर्टिंग रिक्वायरमेंट्स में, जैसे कि आपको फॉरेन एसेट्स को नहीं डिस्क्लोज करना है जब तक आप RNOR स्टेटस एंजॉय कर रहे हैं. एंड so these are certain beneficial points which are there. We need to analyze these when we are filing the tax return, as I said. And जैसे कि मैंने पहले कहा था कि अगर यहाँ पे हमें clarity नहीं है, so we are pretty much on our own. We cannot and should not actually go for advanced ruling because it takes its own course of time. And by the time I think the return filing season or the transaction in hand might have to be finished before that. So therefore, that is not the best approach to follow. Now let's talk about the residential status of a company. So as I said, कि company के case में भी there is a change. There has been a change since 2015. They have introduced the provisions of POEM, और अभी भी ये developing है. और अभी भी इसका जो इम्पैक्ट है, इट्स क्वाइट अ फार रीचिंग इम्पैक्ट, बिकॉज POEM और प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट इज एनीथिंग बट अ पोएम, बिकॉज इसमें इट्स एन एंटी अब्यूज प्रोविजन जो कि ये एक्ट में लाए हैं। और एंटी अब्यूज प्रोविजन को जब आप मेन स्ट्रीम प्रोविजन बना देते हैं तो उसके जो रिपरकशंस होते हैं वो काफी ग्लेरिंग होते हैं, विच वी कैन सी ऑल्सो, बिकॉज वो काफी ज्यादा कंफ्यूजन पैदा करते हैं। इट कंफ्यूजेस द असेसी, बिकॉज अभी अभी जो सिंपल प्लेन डेफिनेशन था वो टोटली चेंज हो गया और वो एंटी अब्यूज प्रोविजन की तरह अगर आप उसको देखेंगे, सो द इम्पैक्ट इज क्वाइट फार रीचिंग। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर कोई भी कंपनी है, उसको हम इफ वी से दैट नहीं नहीं इसमें तो प्लेस ऑफ इनका तो मैनेजमेंट यहीं पर है, इंडिया में ही है, तो इस तरह तो काफी कंपनीज जो है इंडियन रेजिडेंट कहलाएंगी, एंड देन देयर ग्लोबल इनकम कुड बी ऑफर टू टैक्स इन इंडिया, सो विच बिकम्स काउंटर प्रोडक्टिव इन सो मेनी वेज। सो देयरफॉर जो बेसिक प्रोविजन इनकम टैक्स की होती है उसको आई थिंक बेसिक ही रखना चाहिए। इट इज इजी टू इंटरप्रेट, इजी टू अप्लाई, बट जब हम उसमें एंटी अब्यूज डाल देते हैं देन इट इज नॉट ओनली कंफ्यूजिंग, जो कि नाउ दे हैव गिवन some detailed threshold through which the confusion they have tried to mitigate to some extent, but ना ही तो वो सिर्फ confusing होती है but वो cumbersome भी हो जाती है, because then you are always fighting for your own right कि no this fact no no we are not anti abuse, we are very much overseas resident और आप हमको Indian resident मत बनाओ। सो दैट डीमिंग प्रोविजन जो इसमें क्रिएटेड हुई है, ये आई डोंट थिंक दैट इट इज वेरी वेरी क्लियर, बट हाँ अब थोड़ी सी इसमें क्लैरिटी आई है। The last amendment which came in 2019, and we'll be shortly covering that also here in our discussion today. So a company is said to be a resident in India in any previous year if it is an Indian company or its place of effective management in that year is in India. So first criteria is Indian resident country. So the first thing was always the resident rule, which applies in case of a company. The second is the place of effective management, which is an anti-abuse provision which was being brought about. Ab isko explanation, there's an explanation which explains this, that for the purpose of this clause, the place of effective management means a place where key management and commercial decisions that are necessary for the conduct of the business of an entity as a whole are in substance made. अभी अभी आपने देखा होगा कि बिकॉज ऑफ सर्टन टैक्स आर्बिट्रेज काफी लोग यूएई में जाकर के कंपनीज बना रहे हैं। सो देयर आर सो मेनी इंडियन कंपनीज, बिकॉज इंडिया में क्या है कि आपको सीधे सीधे जीएसटी ही, अगर आप गुड्स वगैरह सेल करते हैं आपको जीएसटी 18% लगता है। आई थिंक यूएई में द वैट इज सम 3 to 5% इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग। सो इसी वजह से क्या है कि बहुत सारे आउटशूट कंपनीज लोग बना रहे हैं और वहां पे वो लोग जो है गुड्स वगैरह सेल कर रहे हैं कि ताकि उनको 5% का रेट लगे। बट यहाँ पर इंपॉर्टेंट बात ये है कि अभी अभी आपको ये देखना है कि अगर वहाँ प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट इंडिया ही रहता है, सो की मैनेजमेंट या कमर्शियल डिसीजंस इंडिया से ही ले रहे हैं आप, तो ये सारा कुछ काउंटर प्रोडक्टिव हो सकता है, एंड इवन दैट wholly owned subsidiary of the Indian company can be considered as an Indian resident company. और अगर ऐसा हुआ तो जो दुबई का भी उनका इनकम है, जो हम इनकम आर्बिट्रेज की वजह से ही कहते हैं, बिकॉज आई थिंक वहाँ का कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स रेट भी इज ओनली 9% एज कम्पेयर टू 33-35% इन इंडिया, तो वो आर्बिट्रेज भी खत्म हो जाएगा बिकॉज ऑल दैट इनकम विल बी ऑफर टू टैक्स इन इंडिया। सो देयरफॉर ये वाला जो डेफिनेशन है प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट का, इट बिकम्स वेरी वेरी क्रूशियल। और अभी भी जो एक बेसिक सी स्ट्रक्चरिंग हम कर रहे हैं, वी हैव टू बी वेरी ऑफ दिस चेंज इन द लॉ। सो पोएम करने के लिए, पोएम भी डिसाइड करने के लिए इन्होंने कुछ डिटर्मिनेटिव टेस्ट दिए, एक्चुअल टेस्ट दिए, जिनमें से एक है एक्टिव बिजनेस आउटसाइड इंडिया टेस्ट, विच इज द बिजनेस टेस्ट। सो यहाँ पे ये क्या चाहते हैं कि दे वांट टू सी कि आपका जो एक्टिव बिजनेस है वो इंडिया के बाहर ही है। ऐसा नहीं है कि यहाँ पर आपने सारे एम्प्लॉयज इंडिया में हैं और सारा काम इंडिया से हो रहा है और आप बाहर सिर्फ एक नाम के लिए कंपनी कर रहे हैं। सो दैट बिकम्स that fails the ABOI test. So yeah, so at the end of the slide I've shared my contact details. So anybody who has further queries in this regard can reach out. So the thing is that जो poem है, पोएम आउटसाइड इंडिया हमें प्रूव करना है, अगर हमें डीम रेजिडेंसी नहीं चाहिए, अगर हमें कंपनी को इंडिया में रेजिडेंट नहीं बनाना है, सो पोएम शुड बी आउटसाइड इंडिया, प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट शुड बी आउटसाइड इंडिया। अगर आपने दुबई में कंपनी खोली है तो उसकी मैनेजमेंट दुबई में होनी चाहिए, उसकी मैनेजमेंट अगर इंडिया में हो गई, अगर उसका प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट इंडिया में हो गया, देन द एंटायर स्ट्रक्चर गोज डाउन द ड्रेन, बिकॉज दुबई की इनकम भी आपको इंडिया में टैक्सेबल करनी पड़ेगी एट द कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स रेट ऑफ इंडिया, ओके, क्योंकि वो इंडियन रेजिडेंट कंपनी बन जाएगी। सो देयरफॉर आपको दिखाना होता है कि मेजॉरिटी ऑफ बोर्ड मीटिंग्स आर हेल्ड आउटसाइड इंडिया। यू कैनॉट शो कि यहाँ पर ही की डिसीजन मेकिंग हो रही है, यहाँ पर ही डिसीजन एक हो रही है, स्ट्रेटेजी बन रही है, अकॉर्डिंगली वहां पे वो स्ट्रेटेजी जो है सिर्फ एग्जीक्यूट हो रही है। दैट शुड नॉट बी द केस। आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ पर्संस हु actually make the management and commercial decisions for conduct of company's business as a whole. Yeah, that's correct. POEM के केस में कुछ exemption है. There is a monetary threshold also of 50 crores. I'll be covering in the later slide, but let me just start this the discussion. So अगर decision making authority इंडिया में है तो पोएम भी इंडिया में है। So इसी ABOI टेस्ट को ही इन्होंने और further elaborate किया है, and this has come through various notifications they made, introduced the changes, kept on doing it, and now we have clear thresholds in our hand through which we apply and we decide. So a company is said to be in ABOI if it fulfills these cumulative conditions. So आपको cumulative conditions जो हैं वो आपको follow करनी है. For example, its passive income is 50% or less of its total income. Second is less than 50% of its total income is situated in India, okay, or less than 50% of the total number of employees are situated in India or resident in India. The payroll expenses incurred on such employees are less than 50% of the total payroll expenditure. So as you can see, इंडिया का जो नेक्सस है दैट शुड बी लेस देन 20%. सो अगर हम कंसिडर करते हैं अपने क्लासिक केस को होली ओन सब्सिडरी ऑफ एन इंडियन कंपनी, तो अभी होली ओन सब्सिडरी अगर ओवरसीज में है तो वो इंडियन कंपनी तो नहीं है, ठीक है, दैट इज वन, बिकॉज बाय वर्च्यू ऑफ द इनकॉर्पोरेशन, इनकॉर्पोरेटेड आउटसाइड इंडिया फॉरेन कंपनी. नाउ वी हैव टू सी द POEM टेस्ट. POEM टेस्ट में भी हम ABOI टेस्ट में जब जाएंगे देन वी नीड टू सी अ कपल ऑफ थिंग्स क्यूमुलेटिवली. फर्स्ट, कि उनकी जो पैसिव इनकम है वो लेस देन 50% है टोटल इनकम से. अगर इंडिया से कोई रॉयल्टी ले रहे हैं या इंडिया से कुछ भी इंटरेस्ट ले रहे हैं तो वो सब जो पैसिव इनकम्स हैं वो ओवरऑल जो ग्रुप की इनकम है पैसिव इनकम उसका 50%, ओवरऑल जो ग्रुप की टोटल इनकम है उसकी लेस देन 50% होनी चाहिए. अगर टोटल एसेट हम पूरे ग्रुप का ऐड कर दें, द फॉरेन एंटिटी एज वेल एज द इंडियन एंटिटी, तो उसमें लेस देन 50% के जो एसेट्स है वो इंडिया में होने चाहिए. ऐसा नहीं है कि सारी बिल्डिंग, सारा रियल एस्टेट, सारा कुछ इंडिया में ही है और आपके एसेट बेस जो है वो स्क्यूड टुवर्ड्स इंडिया है, ज्यादा इंडिया में, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. तो आपका वो, क्योंकि क्यूमुलेटिव कंडीशन है, एक भी कंडीशन आपकी फुलफिल नहीं होगी, आप POEM में फॉल कर जाओगे. लेस देन 50% ऑफ टोटल एम्प्लॉइज आर सिचुएटेड इन इंडिया और रेजिडेंट इन इंडिया, ओके. सो ऐसा नहीं है कि इंडिया में ही कॉल सेंटर, इंडिया में ही बैक ऑफिस है और बहुत सारे एम्प्लॉइज है, मोर देन 50% कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ एम्प्लॉइज ही इंडिया में, तो प्रैक्टिकली आपका होली ओन सब्सिडरी बाहर डालना डजंट मेक एनी डिफरेंस. इट विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज POEM, प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव मैनेजमेंट इन इंडिया. पेरोल एक्सपेंसेस जो आपके हैं, जो ओवरऑल पेरोल एक्सपेंसेस है टोटल, उसके लेस देन 50% आपके इंडियन होने चाहिए. So let us understand the passive income. ये passive income क्या है? So the passive income of a company shall be aggregate of income from transactions where both the purchase and sale of goods is from or its AE. Income by way of royalty, dividend, capital gain, interest, except from banking companies and public financial institutions, or rental income, whether or not involving AE. So these are the passive income. अभी थ्रेशोल्ड क्या है पोएम की? सो इनका थ्रेशोल्ड जो है 50 करोड़ और लेस हो गए इन द इन अ पर्टिकुलर फाइनेंशियल ईयर, अगर कंपनी का जो टर्नओवर है या जो ग्रॉस रिसीट्स है वो लेस देन 50 करोड़ है, तो फिर आपको पोएम गाइडलाइंस नहीं लगानी है। ओनली अगर 50 करोड़ के एक्सीडिंग है तब आपको पोएम गाइडलाइंस लगानी है। ये किस पे लगेंगी? इंडियन कंपनी पे? द आंसर इज नो, ये लगेंगी फॉरेन कंपनी पे, बिकॉज हम जो डिसाइड करें रेजिडेंसी वो हम फॉरेन कंपनी की कर रहे हैं, नॉट ऑफ द इंडियन कंपनी। सो अगर 50 करोड़ से ज्यादा है तो हम पोएम अप्लाई करेंगे, इफ लेस देन 50 करोड़ इट शुड नॉट अप्लाई। Now that we have discussed about the POEM, which is the residency in case of a company, let us move on the residential status in case of every other person. So as we have seen in Income Tax Act, there are many persons. There is a association of persons, AOP, there is a BOI, ठीक है, there is a trust. So उन सब cases में कैसे हम residential status define करते हैं? So every other person is said to be a resident in India in any previous year, in every case, except where during that previous year, the control and management of its affairs is situated wholly outside India. So इनको हम डीम्ड इंडियन ही मानते हैं, इनको हम यही मानते हैं कि इंडियंस ही हैं, ट्रस्ट वगैरह अगर इंडिया में है तो, एक्सेप्ट अगर इनका टोटली मैनेजमेंट और कंट्रोल आउटसाइड इंडिया है, होली मतलब टोटली अगर बाहर से ऑपरेट हो रहे हैं तभी हम इनको ओवरसीज मानेंगे, अदरवाइज the first presumption is that they are Indian since they are registered in India. Okay, now we are almost coming to the close of the session and then we can open the house for queries. So this is income deemed to accrue or arise in India, इसका ये definition है, ठीक है। So income जो है वो deemed to accrue or arise in India कभी होती है? जब इट इज थ्रू और फ्रॉम एनी बिजनेस कनेक्शन इन इंडिया, कोई इंडिया से कोई बिजनेस का कनेक्शन है, या कोई एसेट या सोर्स ऑफ इनकम जो है वो इंडियन है, या प्रॉपर्टी जो है वो इंडियन है। फॉर एग्जांपल द क्लासिक केसेस दैट व्हेन देयर टू नॉन रेजिडेंट्स एंड one of the non-residents holds any property in India and they're selling that property to another non-resident, still वो income India में taxable होगी only by virtue of the asset or the property being in India. So ये सब क्या है कि deemed इसमें accrual आपका हो जाता है। ट्रांसफर ऑफ कैपिटल एसेट्स सिचुएटेड इन इंडिया है तभी भी आपका डीम्ड अक्रूवल हो जाता है। सैलरी अर्नड और सर्विसेज रेंडर्ड इन इंडिया है, या सैलरी इज पेएबल बाय द गवर्नमेंट टू द इंडियन सिटीजन फॉर सर्विसेज रेंडर्ड आउटसाइड इंडिया है, या आपका डिविडेंड पेड बाय इंडियन कंपनी आउटसाइड इंडिया है। सो इन सभी केसेस में आपका डीम्ड अक्रूवल हो जाता है इनकम का। Let's talk about business connection. So 911 talks about business connection और इस पे काफी judgments भी है हमारे, and as you would see the kind of depth this subject or this topic has. So the income is deemed to accrue or arise in India if it accrues directly or indirectly through or from any business connection in India. तो अभी हमको business connection को gauge करना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है, और ये जो definition है business connection की, this includes or this shall include any business activity carried out through a person acting on behalf of the non-resident. So अगर आप non-resident की behalf पे act कर रहे हैं तो हम इसको business connection मानते हैं। For a business connection to be established, a person acting on behalf of the non-resident is there. For example, अगर आप कोई agent है of a non-resident, then वो agency का जो concept आता है, that also comes as a part of the business connection is there. इसमें अभी SEP आ गया है। SEP is another very important this thing, where in respect of any goods or services or a property carried out by a non-resident with a person in India, including provision of download or data or software in India. So यहाँ पर आपको aggregate of payment arising from just such transaction during the previous year should not exceed 2 crores. अगर आपका 2 crores से नीचे है then it is fine. Systematic and continuous soliciting of business activities or engaging in interaction with the users in India. So यहाँ पे the number of users should be less than 3 lakhs. अगर नहीं है then आप significant economic presence में cover हो जाएंगे under the business connection. So the above transaction or activities shall constitute SEP in India, whether or not the agreement of such transactions or activities is entered into India or not. बेशक आपका agreement बाहर sign हुआ हो, तो भी SCP applies. Whether or not the NR has a resident or place of business in India or not, चाहे आपका place of business in India है या नहीं, तभी भी SCP आपका आ जाएगा. And the non-resident renders services in India or not, even if आपने बाहर overseas में services render करी हैं, but आपका significant economic presence अगर इंडिया में हो गया है, तो उसको business connection माना जाएगा, और therefore section 9 में आप deemed the income would be deemed to accrue in India आपका हो जाएगा. So SCP आजकल it is really important कि आप SCP की definition को अच्छे से समझें, interpret करें और apply करें in issuing any of your opinions, any and all of your opinions. Yeah, so with this I close my session for the day, and now we can discuss the queries. So I would request Sumit ji to unmute the participants so that they can ask their questions relating to the topic.
Thank you, Parul ji, and I have allowed participant. In meantime, you can see 2 queries in the chat box. I think you have covered. Manish Gupta ji.
I think there were a couple of queries while I was still discussing, but I can't see them now in the chat room.
Okay.
Hello, Parul ji, can I ask?
Yes, Rahul ji,
Yes.
please ask your query.
हाँ जी.
Shortly.
पारुल जी, आई वाज आस्किंग कि सबसे पहले तो मैं वो एम्प्लॉयमेंट वाला एक पूछ रहा था कि जो एम्प्लॉयमेंट आउटसाइड इंडिया होता है दैट इंक्लूड सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट एज वेल ना, कि अगर मैं बिजनेस भी करता हूँ बाहर.
Employment in what text? Because
इन
अभी तक
इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस.
Yeah, so what's your question?
माय क्वेश्चन इज कि एम्प्लॉयमेंट आउटसाइड इंडिया जो डेज वाली कंडीशन होती है 60 days कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड 182 days, तो दैट एम्प्लॉयमेंट आल्सो इंक्लूड्स सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट. जी मतलब एम्प्लॉयमेंट जितना समझ में आता है सैलरी होता है कि सैलरी के लिए मैं बाहर किसी कंपनी में एम्प्लॉयड हो गया. अगर मुझे सैलरी नहीं कमानी, बाहर मैं अपना बिजनेस सेटअप करता हूँ, अपना सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट अगर मेरा है, दैट इज ऑल्सो इंक्लूडेड और नॉट देयर.
या सो एज ए सेड की जो डेफिनेशन हमने आज जो पूरा डिस्कशन किया है, उसमें जब रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस हम इंडिविजुअल का डिसाइड करते हैं, तो फिर उसका 2 ही तरह के क्राइटेरिया जो है, एक वन इज द नंबर ऑफ डेज इन इंडिया फर्स्टली, ठीक है, विच शुड बी, आप लास्ट ईयर में देखेंगे तो 182 days ही देखेंगे. एंड सेकेंड थिंग इज दैट यू सी द डीम्ड रेजिडेंसी. सो अगर आप बाहर है, इरिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ कि आप कैसे, हाउ यू आर अर्निंग एंड हाउ यू आर लिविंग, irrespective of that, अभी जो डीम रेजिडेंसी है उसमें 3 क्राइटेरिया है. एक, यू शुड बी सिटीजन, विच यू आर इफ इवन इफ यू आर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड आउटसाइड इंडिया. सेकेंड थिंग इज कि आपका कुछ भी पैसिव इनकम इंडिया में है वो 15 लाख से एक्सीड ना हो जाए. तो अगर वो भी एक्सीड हो जाता है और आप बाहर जहां भी आप रह रहे हैं या जहां भी आप आउटसाइड इंडिया में आप कहीं पे भी टैक्सेस पे नहीं कर रहे हैं, अगर आप ओवरसीज में टैक्सेस भी पे कर रहे हैं, तो भी आप डीम रेजिडेंसी के डेफिनेशन से बाहर है, ठीक है. सो कहीं पे भी यहाँ पे ना ऐसा नहीं है कि फॉर द पर्पसेस ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट आउटसाइड इंडिया और सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट आउटसाइड इंडिया. सो जो रेजिडेंसी के रूल्स है वो वहां बहुत क्लियर है. सो देयरफॉर आई थिंक टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन, ये even if you go for self-employment, it doesn't make a difference. All that you need to take care is 2-3 things. One is the number of days of stay in India. Second is that if you are a citizen, of course, which you are, then your passive income or any income within India should not exceed 15 lakh. So even if there is a capital gain in a particular year which exceeds 15 lakh, then you have to revisit things. Then you have to see कि मैं overseas में कोई tax pay कर रहा हूँ कि नहीं कर रहा हूँ. अगर आप नहीं कर रहे हो तो आप डीम्ड रेजिडेंट में आ जाओगे. एंड देन उसका भी कार्व आउट ये है कि आपको तभी भी उस ओवरसीज इनकम का टैक्स इंडिया में पे नहीं करना है अगर वो इनकम आप जो है इज नॉट ड्रिवन बाय अ बिजनेस और अ प्रोफेशन सेटअप इन इंडिया, ठीक है. सो आपको उतना चीज को खाली देखना है. तो अगर आप सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड है बाहर और आप डीम्ड रेजिडेंट बन जाते हैं, तो भी अगर आपका वो जो सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट का मॉडल है, जो भी बिजनेस आप बाहर रन कर रहे हैं, आप देखिए आप कोई यहाँ पर इंडिया से कोई आपको सोशल मीडिया कंपनी सपोर्ट तो नहीं करे, या फिर इंडिया से आपको कोई और तो नहीं सपोर्ट कर रहा है, क्योंकि अगर वो होगा then you could come, then you might have to offer that income to tax in India. अगर आपका इंडिया से कोई नेक्सस ही नहीं है तो आप वेरी वेल बाहर अर्न करें and it doesn't make a difference.
पारुल जी, एक और क्वेरी है मनीष गुप्ता जी. मनीष जी, you can ask your query.
Yes, let me ask. Thank you, Parul ji. So Parul ji, मेरी query ये है कि the citizen like Indian resident having a foreign company in USA. Hello, I'm audible?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
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 Speak.
So उनकी एक फॉरेन कंपनी है यूएसए में, वो इंडिया में रहते हैं मोर लाइक 365 डेज, बट सारा बिजनेस इंडिया से मैनेज कर रहे हैं। क्या फॉरेन कंपनी की जो इनकम है वो इंडिया में टैक्सेबल होगी या नहीं, अगर उनकी टर्नओवर 50 करोड़ से कम है? मेरा क्वेश्चन।
So I'll repeat your question. So there is a person who is outside India, right?
नहीं, the person, he is a Indian resident.
Okay,
He's an
Indian
Indian.
resident who is set up his business outside India.
Exactly.
Okay.
एंड सारा ऑपरेशन इंडिया से मैनेज कर रहा है और फॉरेन में कंपनी है, तो क्या वो फॉरेन कंपनी की जो इनकम होगी वो इंडिया में टैक्सेबल होगी या नहीं होगी, अगर उसकी टर्नओवर 50 करोड़ से कम है तो?
See, अगर 50 करोड़ से कम है तो as I just discussed that POEM आपको प्रोविजंस नहीं लगाने हैं। ओके, सो अभी अभी कंपनी के रेजिडेंट होने के रूल्स ही दो है, या तो POEM हो जाए या फिर इंडिया रजिस्टर्ड कंपनी हो, क्योंकि ये फॉरेन रजिस्टर्ड कंपनी है और POEM से क्या आप एम्बेड से ही बाहर आ गए। So as per me, the answer is no, that we need not say that the foreign company is actually an Indian company, because it is not.
इसमें
Because
पीई का
we do not
एक्सपोजर
apply
नहीं आ जाएगा?
POEM.
इसमें पीई एक्सपोजर नहीं देखेंगे क्या?
PE
सर्विस
exposure is different. If we stick to the definition of residency, then it's a separate thing, right? और पीई भी बनेगी तो फिर इंडियन रेजिडेंट की आउटसाइड इंडिया बनेगी ना। हम तो यहाँ इंडिया की बात करें, हम रेजिडेंसी की बात करें, तो अभी भी रेजिडेंट तो नहीं हो सकता ये, क्योंकि POEM के एम्बिट से बाहर आ गया।
So, thanks, Parul for your wonderful derivation. And I think Geetika ma'am is also here, second speaker of the session. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.